gift I received when I moved. It is basically frame by frame, every single frame of Edward Scissorhands, so it's pretty much telling the whole movie, and it has the majority, like the main primary colour of that frame, and that's how they do it. So this is a rainbow of Edward Scissorhands. I have been spending absolute hours trying to pick out, like, you know, oh, which scene are we at and whatever. You can kind of tell that's the climax because a lot of it is in the dark, so... Hello everyone, this is Alex and welcome to Burton Land, where we discuss all things Tim Burton. As many of you know, my all-time favourite movie is Edward Scissorhands, and there are so many ways that people can identify with Edward, and I have seen many video essays and reviews and analysis of the film, but there's one particular character that I've not heard many people talk about. While she may be a supporting character, she is very pivotal in Edward's story, and that of course is Kim Boggs, portrayed by Winona Ryder.
Most people only see her as the love interest, the beauty in this Beauty and the Beast story. Then answer me this: why is she the one to tell Edward's story? To refresh your memory, the story starts with a framing device where an elderly woman tells the modern fairy tale to her granddaughter, and at the end it is revealed that this grandmother is indeed Kim Boggs. With any framing device, there must be a reason for it, especially if there is another character telling the plot.
So when I went back to watching Edward Scissorhands for like the bajillionth time, I focused on Kim and I realised just how essential her character is. So let's dive in and look at a character study of Kim Boggs. Let's start off by looking at her story and going through each scene that Kim is in to understand her personal journey.
We must first point out that the first we have any mention of Kim is when her mother Peg discovers Edward and takes him to live in the suburban neighbourhood below. She introduces the family through photographs with her husband Bill, her son Kevin, and of course her daughter Kim. The first photograph we see of her is when she is ready to go to the junior prom. From this we can already tell that she has a boyfriend and that she is now a senior in high school. The dress she is wearing is a peach colour, which seems very warm and comforting, which gives a nice first impression to Edward, but once we see more photographs of Kim, we see his eyes shine and smile. It is clear that he is falling for her.
Unfortunately, their first meeting is, could have gone better.
During Edward's first few days, Kim is camping in the mountains with her friends but comes back early late at night. At this point, Edward is residing in her bedroom, so seeing a man with scissors for hands in her bed of course has a horrified reaction. To make matters worse, to calm Edward down, Bill offers an alcoholic drink, claiming it to be lemonade. Edward's sudden reaction to it makes him instantly drunk and passes out in front of Kim. This introduction was a juxtaposition compared to the rest of the neighbours. Winona Ryder stated, "Every other character in the movie sort of welcomes him in a very almost bizarre way. Kim is the only one who really has, I feel, who has an honest response, which is, what's he doing here? What's wrong with his hands? Who's really confused." When we think back, Peg, who is the first to discover Edward and understands the need to take care of him. Bill looks in silence and confusion, while Kevin can't stop staring with curiosity. The rest of the town welcome him, but almost with a fake persona. They only see the exciting, strange and unusual feature of his hands, but not exactly accepting him. Kim, on the other hand, displays actual fear and distances herself from him unless absolutely necessary. Things start to change when Edward's creativity in topiary, dog grooming and hairstyles that he goes on television. During a Q&A, one audience member asks if he has a girlfriend. Unknown to Edward, Kim, her boyfriend Jim, and Kevin are watching, and there's a sudden eye lock between them. She knows that he will most likely say her name, but before he can, his scissor hands accidentally cuts the wires to the microphone and give him an electric shock.
Now ask yourself this. If there wasn't that little moment, that little eye lock between the two, I don't think she would have been concerned. I think she would have just been laughing with the other guys. But instead, she is actually worried. You might say this could have been their first spark.
However, Kim's involvement increases when Jim wants to take advantage of Edward's lockpicking skills to break into his parents' house. Kim is very reluctant, but goes along with it, and unfortunately, the alarms go off, leaving Edward locked inside and arrested. During the commotion, Kim tries to persuade Jim to turn back, but fails. Once Edward is released, she finds out that he knew it was Jim's house, and the only reason he did it was because she asked him.
And please note that this is not just concerning Edward's feelings towards her, but it shows that he's not stupid. He is not just some household item to be used, the way the rest of the neighbourhood sees him and uses him.
This becomes even more apparent at dinner when Bill tries to teach Edward some ethics. While he may not have the right answer, he does give the most humane and kindest option. I think this is really the first time Kim sees the person and how pure of heart Edward is.
But the moment that I think a lot of people would agree is when she truly falls for him is, of course, the iconic ice dance.
While preparing for a Christmas party, she notices that it's snowing outside and discovers it is ice chippings from Edward sculpting an ice sculptor. Not only does this make Kim realise the beauty of his talents, but see something so simple can create something so magical as snow, and that he is consistently giving to the people he cares about, even when it's not reciprocated. Unfortunately, the moment is ruined by Jim yelling out to them, which startles Edward, causing him accidentally cutting Kim's palm. With Jim forcing him out and horrified he had hurt Kim, this causes Edward's breaking point as he goes on a rampage, causing the police to go on a hunt for him. Retreating back to the Boggs house, Kim is the only one there, and they finally have a private moment together. This leads to the iconic Hold Me scene, which director Tim Burton has stated that this really illustrates the whole movie. The feeling of wanting to touch and wanting to communicate but not being able to. There's nothing more Edward wants in the world other than just to hold Kim, as he painfully knows he can't. However, Kim finds a slight way to make it work. And here is where the tears start. Every single time.
But just as when something good happens, it takes a turn for the worst.
Kevin nearly gets run over by drunk driving, and when Edward tries to save him, he accidentally slashes his face. And if the neighbourhood misunderstood the previous situation, then they are surely going to see this the wrong way. Edward feels he has no choice but to run back to his mansion on the hill where he was created. But with the neighbours being in their angry mob mentality, Kim rushes up to the mansion to find him, but Jim also makes it up there and tries to kill him. Edward, through self-defense and anger, stabs Jim, and while I am secretly happy he got rid of the true monster of the story, this is not going to help his case with the neighbours. Edward knows he can never return to the town below and that Kim cannot come with him, so they say their goodbyes. Kim, with some quick thinking on her part, convinces the town that Edward is dead, and so they all leave with Kim never seeing him again. This is where she reveals to her granddaughter in the framing device that she is indeed the girl. Burton stated that Kim's character was that even though she didn't go with Edward, she still retained that sense of magic. But I would make the argument that Kim always had that fantasy within her. Reasons really come down to the visual storytelling.
You know, there's a lot that can be said about a person just from their setting and environment. So, I think we should start off by looking at Kim's bedroom.
First off, the primary colour of the room is a pale yellow, which is usually associated with optimism and warmth. This is apparent as Edward stays the first few nights in her room, and it is the opposite of his dark, almost black and white home on the hill. However, yellow could also mean a warning of fear. The fear can come from Kim's first impression of Edward, but the warning could be how she was the one who asked him to break into Jim's parents' house, which started his downfall. The main feature most remembered is the waterbed. Not only does this create a humorous situation for Edward, as it is the worst type of mattress for Scissorhands, but while location scouting, Burton noticed many suburban homes had waterbeds. So, this could show that Kim was keeping up with the latest trends, as she is among the popular teenagers.
And I would like to touch on, yes, while there are many differences, but there's also a few similarities to Edward's resting area in his mansion.
His bed is tucked underneath a hearth in the attic of the mansion. Kim, while her bed is certainly more comfortable, has a canopy as well. Both also have collages as their decorations. Edward's mainly consists of a study of the human body or how people with disabilities get by. However, Kim's main images are of eyes, which could show a bit of vanity, but it could also show how Edward's eyes from the TV show gave her that spark. But in the corner of her room that Edward noticed as he walked in was a shelf of snow globes. This could be that sense of magic Kim has buried deep within, as the snow Edward creates awakened it. And this is something I didn't notice until quite recently, but those very snow globes are also in the granddaughter's bedroom in the framing device. Remember that it was the subject of snow that led Kim to tell the story. And since that magic is still there after all these years, it explains why the framing device looks more like a traditional fairy tale than the actual story, which certainly feels like a fairy tale, but not necessarily conventional.
As Kim's story progresses, we notice the change in her costume, particularly in her colour palette. There are two main colours that she wears.
Firstly is a pale yellow, which not only matches her bedroom, but gives the same meanings I gave before. The other is blue, which can be a calming colour, but it could also be associated with sadness and passivity. This might be why we see her wear this colour when the subject of Jim's house is brought up, either at the dinner table and especially when Jim brings up the idea to use Edward to break in. And it's interesting how these two colours are also Kim's cheerleading uniform. Almost like she has to remind people that she is a cheerleader and among the popular group. But there is a third colour that appears not as often as certain moments, which is red. Red is mostly linked with love and lust. The first time we meet Kim, she is wearing a red coat with Jim's arm around her. However, when she watches Edward on TV, her outfit is more of a hot pink. Pink can be seen as love, but in a more innocent way, so it might mean that she is at odds with both her emotions for both guys. After the break-in and seeing more of Edward's character, she wears a red shirt with flowers. This shows her slowly falling for Edward, especially as he is tending the roses in the backyard. But of course, the colour she wears in the third act is her iconic white dress. First off, the dress gives off a fairy tale-like quality. Is it me, or does the collar almost remind me of the white collar Aurora has in Sleeping Beauty? Even the shine from the top half links with Edward's leather costume. The white colour almost has two sides when it comes to their relationship. The pure, simple image of black and white coming together, but it also foreshadows how they can never be together. The dress also makes Kim stand out to the rest of the town, as they are wearing their Christmas colours of red and green, but they are also in darker shades compared to what they wore before as they become the angry mob. So Kim protecting Edward shows her as a guardian angel of sorts, but with the blood smeared on one sleeve showing the death of their romance. And it's interesting that she holds up the Scissorhands on the very side, convincing everyone he is dead. And what is elderly Kim wearing in the framing device? Red, with a dark purple vest, which can mean fantasy and spirituality. It also mirrors the fact that Peg, who discovered Edward and immediately took him home, was also wearing purple.
So from the story to the environment to the costuming, it shows how essential it is for Kim to tell Edward's story, as he clearly has retained a part of that fairy tale in her.
You can imagine everyone else would just return to their normal lives pretty quickly. Even Peg, I'm sad to say, as she realised her mistake of bringing him down to the town. For Kim, she is the only one who transformed, but also had it in her the whole time.
So, whenever people just say that, oh, Kim's just a love interest, pay attention to both the writing and the visual storytelling. Because, much like Edward, it's not just black and white on who he fell for and who reciprocated that love. And the character that took the time that he had in the town and carried it on and told his story just as she should. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you back in Britain